Good morning, everybody. I'm very thankful to see you all this morning. I'm thankful to welcome you to what appears to be the beginning of the end of the longest government shutdown in U.S. history, as shameful as that is. I don't think it's coincidental, you know how I think, but it's after 40 days of wandering in the wilderness and making the American people suffer needlessly, some Senate Democrats finally have stepped forward to end the pain. It appears to us this morning that our long national nightmare is finally coming to an end, and we're grateful for that. At least some Democrats now finally appear ready to do what Republicans and President Trump and millions of hardworking American people have been asking them to do for weeks. But as we said from the beginning, the people's government cannot be held hostage to further anyone's political agenda. That was never right. And shutting down the government never produces anything. It never has, if you study history. And so here we are. I want to remind everybody this morning of another critical point that you've heard me here repeat over and over the last several weeks. It's something that I and Leader John Thune and President Trump and every Republican leader have all said repeatedly from the beginning. We have always been open to finding solutions to reduce the oppressive costs of health care under the Unaffordable Care Act. We just made clear that we would not and should not ever do that, that is, negotiate as hostages. And I've also reminded you here every morning at this press conference throughout the shutdown, Republicans have not just been talking about reducing costs and fraud and abuse in so many areas and in healthcare. We've been actually passing new laws to accomplish that urgent mission for the people, and we will continue to do so. So here's where we are by way of schedule, just so you know, you're following. And if you're not at home, if you're waking up to this good news this morning, the Senate's vote late last night of 60-40 opens the door now. The Senate is moving forward on an amended House CR, a continuing resolution, that will reopen the government until January 30th. Added to that are provisions to fully fund SNAP provisions through the end of the next fiscal year, which is September 2026. Guaranteed back pay for all federal workers who have been made to endure these hardships over the last several weeks. And it also includes passage of 3 appropriations bills, which we're grateful to be moving through the process. That is the Military Construction Veterans Affairs bill, it's the Agriculture bill, and the Legislative Branch bill. The Senate will be back in session this morning to finish their job, and we're certainly praying that they do. They'll need unanimous consent from all senators to fast-track their final vote. As you know, there are some procedural hurdles that one or more could throw in the way, but we certainly hope that they won't do that because so many people across this country are desperate for the government to reopen. At the very moment that they do that final vote, I will call all House members to return to Washington as quickly as possible. We'll give a 36-hour formal and official notice so that we can vote as soon as possible to pass the amended CR bill and get it to the president's desk. As you all know, and he said as recently as last night, I was with him, and he told the press, he said, we want to get the government open. He's very anxious to get the government reopened and to end the Schumer shutdown. We all are. With regard to the travel challenges, I spoke yesterday at some length with Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, my former colleague and good friend, and he lamented the serious situation that we have with air travel in the U.S. He's bent over backwards, as all members of the administration and the cabinet have done in all of their areas of jurisdiction, to try to keep the government working for the people and to mitigate the pain and the harm. But the problem we have with air travel is that our air traffic controllers are overworked and unpaid, and many of them have called in sick. That's a very stressful job, and even more stressful exponentially when they're having trouble providing for their families. And so air travel has been grinding to a halt in many places. And as of Sunday, nearly half of all domestic flights and U.S. flights were either canceled or delayed. And it's a very serious situation. So I'm saying that by way of reminder. I'm stating the obvious to all my colleagues, Republicans and Democrats in the House. You need to begin right now returning to the Hill. We have to do this as quickly as possible. Now, we look forward to the government reopening this week so Congress can get back to our regular legislative session. We have a lot of business to do, as you all know, and we will be working in earnest. There'll be long days and long nights here for the foreseeable future to make up for all this lost time that was imposed upon us. I want to close with something that's important. I think it's important to say that this is genuine. I mean this sincerely. We applaud the 7 Senate Democrats and 1 independent senator who did the right thing. They decided to put principle over their personal politics. And my urgent plea of all my colleagues in the House, and that means every Democrat in the House, is to think carefully, pray, and finally do the right thing and help us to bring an end to the pain of the American people. This has gone on too long. Too many people have suffered, and it's long overdue. That's the update I wanted to give you this morning. There are probably lots of questions, but I'm going to get a lot of my own questions answered later today, so stay tuned for more. Thanks so much.
I knew you were coming. I had to step it up.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 23 of the Democrat shutdown. And today, you all know, we have a special guest with us. We're delighted to welcome back to Congress U.S. Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy. I enjoyed serving with him during my first few years here, and we're grateful he's serving our country in this very important position right now in these very challenging times. He's a very busy guy, but he'll give us a few minutes to give you an update here in just a moment. You'll hear directly from him about the very real and consequential ways that Americans are suffering right now because of the shutdown. I just wanted to give you a brief update, and then I'll turn it over to the Secretary. But by way of review, the reason that my colleagues and I have come in here every morning now during this painful Schumer shutdown is because we have to share the facts and we have to share the simple truth with the American people. And why is that? Because the Democrats are working overtime to try to hide those facts and to try to distract from the very simple truth here. They want you to forget that just 5 Senate Democrats could reopen the government today. All we need is 5 of them. They try to pretend that their counter-proposal deal doesn't reinstate free health care for illegal aliens, $200 billion of taxpayer funds. They try to pretend that their counter-proposal would not send billions of dollars in wasteful spending for social projects in foreign countries overseas. They don't want you to look at the facts. They don't want you to look at the paperwork that they themselves filed as the counterproposal. And they refuse to admit that this entire shutdown is one big political game to satisfy the radical Marxist base of their party. But that is exactly what is going on. And I want to be absolutely clear about this. Democrats would not have shut the government down this time if their political careers did not depend on it. And that is not some Republican talking point. That is the objective truth. If it wasn't already abundantly clear, the number 2 Democrat in the House yesterday openly admitted to that fact. Katherine Clark is the House Democrat whip. She works right under Hakeem Jeffries as the number 1 Democrat, and she was in an interview and she said to one of your colleagues sitting here on the front row, quote, "Of course there will be families that are going to suffer, but this is one of the few leverage times we have," unquote. It's shocking to hear them say that out loud. By her own admission, she knows that the American people are suffering. Democrats know that millions of federal workers are desperate for their paychecks. They know that thousands of flights have been delayed. They know that SNAP benefits and nutrition assistance for women, infants, and children are in jeopardy for millions of American families. And yet, they don't seem to care. But you know what? Take heart, America, take heart, because all your suffering is for a good cause. It's for the Democrats' political leverage. That's what the number 2 Democrat said here yesterday. It is utterly shameful. The obvious truth is that only a Democrat could get away with saying such abhorrent things without the media batting its eye. I guarantee you, if the tables were turned, if the Republicans were the ones holding the country hostage and openly admitting to it, it would be absolutely explosive. It would be wall-to-wall coverage, and everybody in this room knows that. Every single mainstream media outlet, every newspaper in America, every single day would have that on the top fold as the big headline. But of course, that's not what's happening right now. Coverage of all this has been sporadic and almost every time spun to try to somehow favor the Democrats who have put us in this mess. Democrats own this. They have said so themselves, and you just have to listen to their own words. Don't listen to us. Chuck Schumer himself said infamously, "Every day of the shutdown gets better for us," meaning the Democrats. And then you had the Democrat whip here say yesterday, openly admitted, they're holding the country hostage for their political leverage. They're perfectly fine with that. They're perfectly okay with real pain being felt by real Americans as long as it helps their political agenda as they see it, as long as they can force $1.5 trillion new dollars in spending on America and get illegal aliens back on health care funded by U.S. citizens. That's their counterproposal. And largely, so many in the media are turning a blind eye to that. Well, as I said earlier, we've stood up here every day and talked to you about some of the terribly harmful effects that the Democrat shutdown is causing on Americans. We talked about troops at risk of missing their next paycheck, The nutrition assistance for women, infants, and children is under threat. Now, SNAP benefits will not be sent to those who truly need it. But there's another very important group of federal employees that we want to highlight today because they also aren't getting paid, and the consequences are being felt around the country. Air traffic